G'day guys, Tools20 here and welcome back to Marble Mountain. Today's episode is going to be kicked off with a live play because I wanted to show you around where I wanted to be working in today's episode, as well as do a little bit of an overview of what we did last episode. So last episode we were plopping down these unique factories which are doing absolutely nothing besides costing the city a little bit of cash. We already knew that, coming into it. I plopped these down because I wanted to figure out exactly what industry I wanted to focus on in the next couple of episodes, and you know, now that I've placed these down, I think some sort of forestry industry will be the most sensible option, seeing as both factories need paper, and I think we're going to focus on plastic and petroleum as an import. Maybe we might fit that into this episode, we'll see how we go, but I don't think I really want to be placing down any oil industry for a little while at least. You know, we'll see how the industry goes for the time being, but for now, I just want to focus on forestry industry and farming. So we're going to start with forestry and then we'll move into some farming a little bit later on. We're going to get out of the city for this because I don't really want too much forestry industry around here. You know, that's the whole purpose of this series, is to get right out of the city. So obviously the best location is going to be this valley here with all these trees that we're going to turn into some forestry industry, but you know, that's going to be a real shame, but I think that's probably the best fitting area. But it will also be branching out to other places, pardon the pun, branching out, but I think there's some good forest around here, and there's some more forest that I can sort of tap into, that I can create. I'm going to start here though, not really sure exactly whereabouts I'm going to be doing it. I just want to show you as well, I've been turning a couple of places into parks. So this is Marble Mountain, obviously, big old mountain that will turn into a national park at some stage, where we'll get some walkways and roads going up here. And then we've also got Serrano Valley, which was mentioned in the comments section a couple of episodes ago. I thought that was a cool fitting name for this area. So I'm going to put down some forestry industry somewhere around Serrano Valley. I'm not sure exactly because we'll probably have a few dotted around here. I think I'm going to probably start around here because this is where the main road is, and this is also where the train line goes. And I think that's going to be pretty useful in terms of getting cargo into the city. That's a pretty long-winded train line that stretches all the way around here through valleys and through deserts, but eventually gets to the city, so I think that'll be quite useful. So I think this is probably the best fitting place to start with the main logging and getting all the resources. And then I think I'll also place another forestry industry somewhere around here. Actually, let's map it out now while we're talking about it. Yeah, so I think I'm going to do the bulk of the logging around here, and then I'll probably do some sort of industry around here, maybe even hidden up there, maybe a bit more off the roads and a little bit up into the mountains. I'm thinking more like sawmills around here. So it's almost like a chain. We have the collecting of the resources, and then around here we'll have it being processed into things, and they'll probably have another part of the chain around here as it gets into the city. I think we'll probably do that, and honestly we're going to have a few more around this area in later episodes. I think we'll probably get like a big one around here or something like that. But for the time being, let's jump into this area. We're going to start plopping down some different forestry things, and I'm going to detail it quite a bit, make it look pretty cool. So I'm going to do that all in a time lapse. So I'm going to leave you right now and see you in a time lapse. So going into this build, I had a little bit of an idea of what I wanted to achieve, and a little bit of a sense of how I was going to achieve it, but to be honest, I was just kind of building and seeing how things were going to take shape. One thing that I knew is that I really didn't want these ugly vanilla trees poking through this awesome Pidelmo pinewood forest. I wanted to sort of keep the same theme, as if this whole area was dedicated to the logging of the natural trees that are growing in this area, and I figured it would make no sense to have these random vanilla trees and then these really lovely Pidelmo trees poking out. So I figured I'd somehow place down all the forestry that I wanted to have in this area, and then have all the trees, all the Peat Elm trees just placed over the top of it, which you'll see me do pretty shortly. But I end up changing that technique and doing something different. So that was my technique going into it, because I knew that I did want to have a lot of forestry coming out of this, a lot of the raw resources coming out. However, I went far too many. Like I really didn't need to be placing down as many plantations as I actually did. So everything that you see me doing with these plantations, I end up changing and only having probably about 5 or 6 of these plantations instead. I think there's about, I don't know, there's almost 20 placed down here, and that's way too many, and it was killing the FPS, and there was also a lot of trucks coming in and out, and it was just very unrealistic, and it was clogging up the roads way too much. So I ended up changing that and going with a different technique. But I highly encourage you to have a go at doing this. If you don't really like the vanilla trees, then you can just place down your own trees over the top of it, and that works really nicely. But I think what I ended up doing probably worked out a lot better. And the idea behind this area is I wanted these plantations to look like man-made plantations, so it's not just a logging of this forest. This whole forest is, I'd imagine, to be a national park, and this one dedicated area is just the plantation. So I think the way that I end up placing down the trees is a much better look, because they're in a straight line rather than all bushy and wild like they are right now. You'll see me do that at the very end of the episode, where I'll be jumping back into a live play. I think it turned out a lot better. But you can also see me placing down these other plantations, the real plantations, and I decided to go for the littler versions rather than the big trees, because I think they look a lot nicer, and I feel like they are the little saplings that will then eventually become the proper tree. And so you can sort of see the 2 stages of the plantation. You can see where the trees are full grown and probably ready to be logged, and then you've got these smaller trees where they've only just recently logged this area and they're just establishing their resources. So I think it worked pretty well, and I didn't expect to be doing it like that, but now that I have, I can't see any other way that I'd possibly do it. And there is a lot coming from that production. There's a whole bunch. So I don't even know how many more logging places I'm going to be placing down in Marble Mountain, to be honest. Who knows, that might be just the one. That might be enough to support everything that we do in the city and in the greater region. We'll just have to wait and see. But what I'm working on now is I'm working on the Sawmill. I love how this thing turns out. It's just nestled in the side of the mountain, and there's this great winding road that was something that I really wanted to make sure that I had in this area, because I think that this particular forest has a lot of these winding roads that have to snake their way up these mountains. There's quite a lot of big mountains around this area. But yeah, the Sawmill, I think it turned out great. I think I'd like to probably create another Sawmill somewhere nestled in a mountain, maybe not as big, maybe even bigger, I don't really know. This one's quite a large one, and I don't know how much larger I could possibly go, because a lot of traffic does come up this road, which I think will not be quite as much when we do have a couple more sawmills either in the city or around this area. And you know, I just think it might just be a little bit too popular at the moment for what it probably would be like in real life. I also included a paper factory because we did need that in the city, and I'm sure we're going to need it again. It also works in this area. I think it fits the theme. It has some really cool elements to it that I thought worked pretty nicely, so I made sure I did that. You can also see a lot of these palm trees that they're so ugly. They're the vanilla palm trees, but I don't know if it's too fast to see that in this time lapse, but you can see me just place over a pine tree over the top of it, and they totally hide that look, which is pretty good. I am though trying to be a little bit conservative with the trees. I know I am doing quite a lot of tree plopping, especially around that plantation. There's a lot of trees around there. I do end up deleting quite a lot of them because they were dropping the FPS a lot. But since going back and fixing up some of those trees, I have actually increased the FPS. So that's something that I'm trying to be mindful of. it's usually fine for me because I don't really mind too much of an FPS drop because I am very much used to it. But if I'm going to be sharing the game, I also want to make sure that it's pretty well optimized for you guys too. And that also, just a quick question, because I have been doing quite a lot of detailing and a lot of work on how everything looks and making sure that, you know, I'm basically putting as much detail in as possible. But I want to know, is that what you expected from this series, or did you think that I was going to go just full vanilla without as much detail? And if you thought I was going to go full vanilla, is this better? Like, is this what you wanted me to be doing? Because this is generally what I wanted from this series, is to try and create as much detail as possible, but also trying to use as many vanilla assets, or at least whatever I could just get my hands on, and trying to be really resourceful with what I have. But do let me know. I am kind of curious to see if this is what you're expecting, or if you weren't expecting it, if it's a nice surprise or if it's an annoying surprise. Do let me know, because, you know, if it is too much detail and people are sort of expecting a little bit less detail for the save game and to sort of be jumping on board with downloading it, then you know, I'm more than happy just to tone it down a little bit and just not do quite as much. But at the moment, I'm pretty happy with just doing the general detail work that I am doing. It's not too crazy, and it's nothing more than I would do in any of my other series, but, you know, it might be more detailed work than you probably expected. And you know, speaking of detail work, this is probably my favorite part of the whole episode, and that's when I started plopping down these logs, because they just add so much to this area. They change the look of it completely, and yeah, I think it's a complete game changer. I think it totally transforms and really makes this place very unique. Makes it feel like an actual logging factory rather than just another factory up on the hill. And that was just something that I stumbled upon, and something that I probably haven't even placed down in any of my other series. You know, and I think that's sort of the reason why I wanted to start a series like this, is trying to be a little bit more resourceful and just using the things that already exist within the game, not have to download 50 million different types of trees, because there are just pretty cool looking assets, vanilla assets that I could possibly use. And for the last part of the time lapse, I am dragging a lot of these paths around the sawmill. So in my mind, these were tracks that were created for the sawmill, and they were all part of the industry. Though, like, thinking back to it now, they're not going to be walking around or driving trucks around finding logs that are around this particular area. All the logs and all the trees that are coming to the sawmill are probably being sourced from all the plantations that are going to be around the forest, rather than actually just venturing out into the forest around them. However, I think it's a nice touch, and I think it just really makes it look like there's an industry around here, and it's not just this random building that's placed in the middle of a forest. I think it creates the look that the factory is really well established, and it's probably been here and evolved over a very long time, which is what I generally wanted this area to look like. But that's pretty much it for the time lapse. I'm going to jump into the live play and see if the production chain is working at all, and go through a little bit more detail about what I've been doing. So since the time lapse, I have had the simulation running for a little while, and as you can see, we're starting to see a bit of progress with these levels. He's already leveled up 3, and he's almost up to the 4th one, which is pretty cool. The profit fluctuates between $2,000 to $300, so it's making a bit of an income, which is actually quite surprising considering how many of these plantations we have. We probably have too many, and we're not really exporting too much at the moment. We will be probably later on down the track when we have more factories in the city and around the region. But for now, we have a lot bulked up. As you can see, a lot of these logs bulked up. Yeah, quite a lot. So as I said before, we got rid of all the plantations underneath here, which has made a really big difference. I'm really glad I did that. And I just made it really simple by just keeping these in a straight line, which is what you usually see around these forestry plantations. And I think it's cool because there's like such a big difference between this natural bush around here and then these man-made ones, which is generally the thing that you see with these plantations. And I think we will start seeing a bit more of these resources being used up in the city down the track, but for now we've got quite a lot of excess. But all in all, I think it turned out pretty cool. I think my favorite part about this whole thing is these plantations that are sitting up on the hillside. I might even creep that up a little bit further on if we do need to expand this plantation out a little bit. And I didn't end up placing down a cargo hub here. I might do. Let me know if you think that'd be a cool idea. I don't know if it's going to kill the ambience of this area a little bit. I don't know. We'll see. The reason why I think we should probably place one down is because we have this train line. And, you know, following this whole network, we've got this road network, which is pretty much everybody's using. Then we have this train network too that's going to lead up to the Cooper forestry area. I think we should change that name to maybe the Sawmill, or, you know, a name of a sawmill. I don't know. Let me know if you have an idea for a name. But we're also making a profit here. Not only does it look cool, but we're making a bit of a profit. And I think he looks so cool and nestled in the mountains over there, which is pretty much what I wanted. I just wanted him up in the mountains so that when you're coming into this area, you can just see it poking through the top. So starting from the very beginning of where this area starts, something I did off camera is I placed down this log pile. I feel like that was placed intentionally by the sawmill to sort of show that there's a sawmill up here. I wish there was a sign here, but I couldn't find any signs that were, you know, vanilla and I could use. Something also that I did that I thought was quite a cool idea was originally I had these power lines going all the way up to the sawmill, but they're so ugly looking. It just didn't fit going up there. So instead I placed down a whole bunch of these little industries just up the road so that they were carrying the power just a little bit, and you can barely see them, and as you can see they act as a bit of a power line going up. So I thought that was a pretty cool technique. But basically going up the mountain and you winding up through the different hillsides, and then there it is. I think it turned out pretty cool looking. And it functions really nicely. At the moment we're seeing way too much traffic going in. I think we'll probably end up seeing a whole lot less when we start placing out a couple more sawmills. One thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change how fast people can go on these roads, because this is a really windy road and I think 100 going up these things is just too crazy. I'm just going to tone it down a little bit. I think 6 is still probably a little bit too fast, but you know, I do also want to see this industry thriving, and you know, I don't want to totally slow them down to a completely realistic speed. But something that is pretty cool is this cargo train line is exporting quite a lot of goods. However, it's not really importing. When I say not really, it's not importing to the city at all. So that's something that we're going to do now, is we're going to connect this up to the city, because as you can see, you can follow all the way through this mountainside, through the farms that we'll eventually build, and then it does get to the city. And the reason why I did place that industry down is because I needed to start feeding into this industrial park. At the moment we're getting quite a lot coming into here, which I might start cranking up the production rate. Hopefully we'll keep on. I have a feeling we're going to keep up with demand pretty well. But I think I'm just going to place down a cargo hub just here for the time being. It's not going to be anything too crash hot, because I will change it eventually. Just going to keep it super simple, just so we can start to see the train line impacting around this area too. I think there's going to be a bit of a cargo, a lot of train lines coming around here. Going underneath this road here is something that I'm definitely going to be doing. I will detail this area later on, maybe in the next episode. I don't know. I think I make a lot of promises in episodes like this that I'm going to do, but I actually don't end up doing them. But I think that's generally what I'm going to do, and hopefully we're going to see a bit more of a production rate happening around here. Obviously he's not making any money because plastics is something that we're not creating. Maybe I'll work on that in the next episode. Who knows? But that is pretty much it for this one. I hope you've enjoyed it. Hopefully we're going to start seeing a bit more of a profit in the city. At the moment it's pretty weak, but eventually I'm sure we'll start seeing a bit more happening in terms of money. But that's it for this episode. I hope you've enjoyed it. If you have, don't forget to leave some nice feedback in the comments section or by rating up this video. But until next time, have a great week, and I'll catch you in the next one. See you later.